Welcome to Lamp Stories. When Justine Brown felt her phone vibrate, she swiftly picked it up. It was a message from her husband, Bob, who had been away on a business trip for the past few days. Unlocking her phone, she read the message. "Finished here," it said. "On my way back. Dinner reservations set for 7:00 p.m. at Mario's. See you there. Happy anniversary." The message lacked the usual affectionate words or heart emojis, a trend Justine had noticed lately. Bob hadn't been particularly communicative. "See you," Olivia responded, adding, "Happy anniversary. Love you." Although she sent the message with a glimmer of hope, she didn't anticipate a reply. Placing her phone on the nightstand, she longed for some form of acknowledgement. However, none arrived. Checking the clock, Olivia realized she had just enough time to freshen up before reuniting with her husband. Letting out a sigh, she stepped off the bed and headed for the adjoining bathroom, preparing for a shower before their anniversary dinner. "Who was that?" inquired John Anderson, the man Olivia had recently spent hours with. "That was my husband," Olivia replied. "He's on his way back, and he's already arranged dinner reservations at Mario's for our 5th anniversary." "Your 5th anniversary, huh?" John mused. "I thought you mentioned he was back east." "He was," Olivia explained. "Apparently, he wrapped things up early. I need to call my mother and ask if she can look after little Jacob for a bit longer." "All right, do that, then come on back to bed," John suggested with a slight grin. "Maybe we can give Bob a little present." Olivia snorted at the playful remark. "I'd love to, John, but I really need to freshen up, and time is limited," she said. "Luckily, I have some clean clothes here I can put on. Meeting my husband in the wrinkled, stained clothes I wore here wouldn't be ideal." "Do you think he knows about us?" John asked. Olivia shook her head. "No, I doubt it," she responded. "He's been preoccupied lately. Rarely talks to me, hardly spends time with the baby. It's like he's in a different world." "How long will you keep this up?" John questioned. Olivia shrugged. "It's hard to say," she admitted. "He's a good provider. I believe he could be a great father if he applied himself." "Does he know Jacob isn't his?" John asked. Olivia assured him, if he does, he hasn't mentioned it. "I can't imagine he'd keep something like that to himself." "Well, I'll be here for you if you need anything," John offered, and Olivia smiled appreciatively. Olivia entered the closet, selecting a clean dress. She marveled at how much of her wardrobe was housed here, rather than the closet she shared with her husband. Examining the chosen dress, a blue one that fell just above her knee and revealed a hint of cleavage, Olivia wondered if Bob had seen it before. If not, she decided she would tell him she had recently purchased it. After calling her mother, Olivia took a hot shower. Post-shower, she meticulously brushed her long, dark hair, dressed, and applied makeup. Confident that she looked and smelled pleasing enough for Bob's scrutiny, she kissed John goodbye and left for the evening. "See you in the office tomorrow?" John asked, eyeing her. "Of course, lover," she replied. "But for tonight, duty calls." With a sway of her hips, she grabbed her purse and exited the room. Bob Brown took a puff from his cigarette, seated in his Escalade across from Mario's in the parking lot. A message from one of the private investigators he employed just informed him that Olivia had left John Anderson's upscale condo, a rendezvous spot for their year-and-a-half-long affair. Glancing at the photo the investigator sent, he observed Olivia in a blue dress that wasn't the same one she wore earlier that day, and certainly not one he had seen before. Unsurprisingly, Olivia was adept at keeping secrets. One thing Olivia got right: Bob had been back from the East Coast for a day. Urgently summoned by a mysterious figure known only as Alpha One, Bob faced a serious security breach that needed immediate attention. They, an undisclosed federal agency, threatened intervention if Bob didn't handle it discreetly. Bob recalled the tense meeting with Alpha One, a man shrouded in secrecy. "You have a serious problem," Brown, the man warned, akin to the gravity of a biblical figure. "And when you have a problem, we ALL have a problem. Deal with it, quietly, or I will." Bob had little choice but to comply, understanding the consequences of crossing paths with Alpha One. While Olivia believed Bob to be a mere traveling salesman promoting security systems, he was intricately entwined in a deeper web. The security equipment he sold and installed allowed Alpha One's monitors insight into every facet of the companies they served. Bob's current predicament arose from the breach. His wife, Olivia, who had been having an affair with John Anderson, a senior partner at the law firm where she worked as a paralegal. Discovering the affair was a gradual process for Bob, given his frequent work-related travels. However, he sensed something amiss in their relationship. Just as he learned the specifics of the affair, Olivia disclosed her pregnancy. A legal advisor informed Bob that, due to Olivia's pregnancy, no divorce could proceed until after the child's birth. The prenuptial agreement offered little relief, leaving him liable for child support and maintenance. Enduring Olivia's pregnancy and the birth of Jacob, named after the sperm donor, Bob remained silent. Post-birth, he requested a DNA test, confirming Jacob wasn't his biological son. Glancing at his watch, Bob anticipated Olivia's arrival. Seeing a couple by the door, likely his cue, he drove across the street, parked, and entered Mario's. He discreetly spoke to the hostess, securing a corner booth, while the khaki-clad man and the woman with him occupied another booth within earshot. As Olivia approached, Bob stood, acknowledging her with a nod as she slid into the booth across from him. "Good evening, Olivia," Bob greeted in a neutral tone. "You look very nice this evening." "Thank you, Bob," she responded, smiling. "I don't recall seeing that dress before," Bob observed. "Is that something new?" Yeah, I just picked it up. Do you like it?" "Yes, it really sets off your eyes," he remarked with a slight smile. After placing their orders, the distant notes of music wafted from another section of Mario's, a venue that transcended being just a restaurant, featuring a dance floor and cocktail lounge. "It sounds like they're playing our song," Olivia mentioned, signaling her desire to dance. Bob thought, why not, considering it was their anniversary, even if it might be their last. "Care to dance?" he proposed, rising from his seat. "Don't mind if I do," Olivia replied, extending her hand. Bob took her hand and led her to the dance floor. They swayed in each other's arms, but Olivia couldn't ignore the subtle distance Bob maintained, almost as if he could barely stand to touch her. The song concluded, and Bob escorted her back to the booth where their food awaited. "Is something wrong, Bob?" Olivia inquired. "You seem so standoffish. This is supposed to be our anniversary." "Yes, it is," Bob acknowledged. "The fact is, your dress carries the scent of lingering time in John Anderson's closet. And try as you might, you weren't quite successful in cleansing his stink off your body." "What?" Olivia asked, offended by Bob's tone. "John Anderson, are you serious?" she protested, attempting, unsuccessfully, to deflect Bob's accusations. "Yes, you know John Anderson, one of the senior partners at the law firm where you work," Bob stated matter-of-factly. "Of course, I know who he is," Olivia retorted sarcastically. "I certainly hope so," Bob continued. "After all, you've spent enough time in his bed, and he is little Jacob's sperm donor." "What are you saying? That's outrageous. I will not sit here and be spoken to like this," she declared indignantly. "Actually, you will," Bob stated, opening his briefcase. "You will sit there and absorb whatever degradation I choose to heap upon you. Especially after what you've been doing for the last 16 months. "What?" Olivia asked. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do," Bob asserted. "Let's start with this," he added, placing a sheet of paper in front of her. "What's this?" she asked. "This is the result of a DNA test I had done on your child," Bob revealed. "According to this, Jacob is not my son. The sheet under it is another DNA test that proves the sperm donor is none other than your lover, John Anderson, the man you named Jacob after." "How did you get John's DNA?" she asked, confused. "That was easy," Bob explained. "You've been bringing it home with you at least 3 nights a week. But there's more." He pulled out a thick folder and dropped it on the table. "What's this?" Olivia inquired. "A copy of every email, text message, and DM between you and John over the last 16 months, Bob disclosed. "I hate to break it to you, but there really is no such thing as privacy online anymore." "Okay, I admit it," she said. "John and I fooled around once, but that was it. And it was just sex. It didn't mean anything." "Not really?" "Is that a fact?" Bob asked, Please turn to page 75 and look about halfway down the page until you find the passage I highlighted. Tell me what you see." She flipped the pages until she got to the one Bob referenced. Her face went white as she read her own words to John. "I'm waiting," Bob said. "I'm reading it," she said quietly. "Out loud," he insisted. "I want to hear you say the words you wrote to him." She gulped, casting a pleading look back at the page. "Please," she begged, "don't make me do this." "Either you do it or I will," Bob declared. "And if I do it, I promise I won't care who hears." Tears streaming down her face, Olivia reluctantly looked back at the paper and began reading the words Bob had highlighted. "I love what you do to me, John. I haven't felt so wonderfully satisfied as I have these last 16 months. I can't wait until you knock me up with another one of your babies," she read. "In all the time we were married, I don't recall you ever once speaking to me like that," Bob remarked. "Is this all you have?" she nervously asked. "No," Bob replied. "I have pictures, audio, and video. Hours upon hours of video." "You must really hate me," Olivia said quietly as she pushed her food around on her plate. "Yes, I do," Bob admitted. She looked up, shocked at his words. It hit her like a slap across her face. "There was a time I would have taken a bullet for you. Now it's all I can do to keep from blowing your stupid head off." "How long have you known?" she asked. "I had suspicions before you told me you were pregnant," Bob disclosed. "I did some digging and got some evidence, enough to satisfy the prenup. By the time I spoke to an attorney, though, you informed me you were pregnant. The lawyer told me in no uncertain terms that no judge would even entertain a divorce until after you gave birth. Child support and all that, you see. But now that Jacob is born, I have more than enough evidence to get the job done. So I filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery," Bob explained, gesturing to the two people at the nearby table, who stood up and walked over. "This nice man has something for you." "Ms. Olivia Brown?" the man asked. "Yes," Olivia said quietly. The man placed a manila envelope in front of her. "You have been served," the man declared. "Served?" Olivia asked, tears falling down her face. "Yes, served," Bob said, handing her a pen. "With divorce papers. Look them over. You'll find they're just as we agreed in the prenuptial. Sign them now, and I'm prepared to give you a bank draft for $2,122.63, the exact amount you had when you married. Don't ask for any more. I already know about your secret little slush fund. You can keep that, along with your retirement. All of your belongings have been taken to your mother's house. Yes, she knows, and she's very disappointed in you. But she's agreed to let you stay with her until you can find a place of your own. For the boy's sake, not yours." "But I don't want a divorce," Olivia said. "I love you." "Please, Olivia," Bob said. "Don't insult my intelligence. Listen." He pulled out his phone and played her conversation with John from earlier that day. Her eyes grew wide when she heard her own voice coming from Bob's phone. How did you get that?" she asked. "Well, I'd tell you, but then I'd really have to shoot you. As much as I hate you right now, I really don't think it would be right to deprive little Jacob of his mother," Bob said with a smile that held no warmth. "I was nothing more to you than a meal ticket and a caretaker, while your baby daddy got all the benefits. Just so you know, your ticket's been punched. No more free meals for you, at least from me." "What about John?" she asked. Concerned for your baby daddy, are you? Fortunately, we live in a state that allows for alienation of affection lawsuits. For me, that is. He's being served right now. It may or may not go anywhere, but it's the principle that counts, don't you think? Anyway, his troubles are just beginning. You see, I spoke with Hamilton Jackson, your managing partner, today. Showed him my evidence and expressed my displeasure with the knowledge that one of his senior partners is involved with a subordinate. Specifically, a subordinate married to me, at least for the moment. Mr. Jackson was quite concerned and more than a bit anxious that Mr. Anderson's antics might shed unwelcome attention for his firm, not to mention a somewhat significant financial burden. He agreed it would be best if Mr. Anderson was no longer affiliated with the firm and assured me he would take it up with his board this evening. He'd also agreed that it would not be right to punish you, especially since you're a mother with a newborn baby. After all, Mr. Anderson was your boss, in a matter of speaking, and he did not want to expose the firm to a potential sexual harassment lawsuit. Given your work history there, he agreed it would be best to keep you on board, at least for the time being. But I assure you, Mr. Anderson's troubles are just beginning, Bob said. How much do you know about your lover? I mean, really know. What are you talking about? Olivia asked. I'm talking about his clients, the people he does business with, who he really represents, that is, and what he does when he's not screwing you into his mattress. What do you know about that? Bob asked. I don't know, she said. He doesn't talk about any of that with me. Probably a good thing, Bob said. Let's just say your John Anderson has a very interesting clientele, the kind that attracts the attention of certain federal agencies. Agencies that can make a person disappear without a trace. You follow what I'm saying? You're scaring me, Bob, Olivia said. And you should be scared, he told her. Scared enough to stay the hell away from John Anderson, because he is going down, and if you're anywhere near him when it happens, you'll go down as well. Who are you, Bob? She asked. Really? He smiled, nodding his head at the paperwork in front of her. Sign the papers, Olivia, and end this farce now. I've probably told you far too much already, Bob said. And by the way, your credit card has been canceled, and your house key no longer works. I had the locks changed today while you were with John. I've also taken care of the bank account, so you no longer have access to that. Given that you put half of your earnings into your own secret account, that shouldn't be an issue for you anyway. You have been busy, haven't you? She asked. Bob shrugged his shoulders. Defeated, Olivia examined the divorce papers and saw they were just as Bob had said. She signed the papers and handed the pen back to Bob. He smiled as he took the pen and reviewed the papers. The process server witnessed the signatures, and the woman with him notarized the signed paperwork. Bob handed the papers back to the process server. I'll see these get to your lawyer, Mr. Brown, he said. Thank you, Bob said. After they left, Bob turned back to Olivia. I believe you need to surrender your rings, he told her. Do I have to? I love those rings, she cried. Apparently not enough to stay out of John Anderson's bed, Bob said. Olivia tearfully removed her wedding and engagement rings and placed them on the table. He pocketed them before addressing her. I believe our business here is concluded. Concluded? Olivia asked. That's all you have to say. What more needs to be said? Bob replied. Why? Why did you do this on our anniversary? She asked, tears streaming down her face. Do you know how humiliating this was for me? Do you know how humiliating it was for me to learn that you've been screwing around on me all this time? And how humiliating it was to learn Jacob wasn't even my son? And how humiliating it was when I learned you screwed Anderson on our anniversary? Don't even go there with me, Bob said. We're done. We're finished. Goodbye, Olivia. I never want to see your face again. With that, he turned back to his meal, not making eye contact with Olivia, who wiped her face. The waitress came by and asked if everything was all right. Yes, the meal is excellent, as always, Bob said nonchalantly. I'll take care of the check, and I believe the lady will take her food to go, please. Yes, sir, she said, leaving to get a box for Olivia's meal. She returned a few moments later and put the rest of Olivia's meal in a styrofoam container. Bob handed the waitress his credit card and paid for the meal as Olivia gathered her things. After the waitress finished, Olivia looked at Bob. And that's it? She asked. That's it, Bob said with a wave of his hand. She couldn't believe the way he just dismissed her. I'm sorry, Bob, she said. He looked up from his meal before speaking. Well, on that we can both agree, he said. Good day now. Tell your mother I said hello. Oh, and happy anniversary, he added with a slight smile. Olivia, unable to comprehend the calm manner in which her husband essentially cast her aside, ran from the table, sobbing. Bob smiled, then turned back to his meal. He noticed a few patrons looking at him with disdain, but he only smiled back, shrugging his shoulders. Though he appeared calm on the outside, inside, he was an emotional wreck. 5 years down the drain, at least, now the worst was over. Epilogue. Bob managed to navigate the next few days without incident. It wasn't easy. He had once loved Olivia, and the pain of dealing with her in such a way weighed heavily on him. Nevertheless, he believed it was better than succumbing to the temptation of exploding in anger at her. Then came the day when banging echoed at his front door. In his master bedroom upstairs, he peered out the window to see Anderson's sports car in his driveway. Anticipating such a situation, Bob had made some security enhancements to his house, as per Alpha One's recommendation. He descended the stairs and opened the door, confirming it was indeed John Anderson. Rage burned in Anderson's eyes as he forcefully entered. "You son of a bitch. You cost me my job. And Olivia won't even talk to me. I'm going to fucking kill you, you motherfucking piece of shit," John screamed, his face turning red. He advanced on Bob until he noticed 15 tiny red dots suddenly appear on his shirt. "N.T. Rudy screamed an electronic voice from speakers embedded in the walls. "Do not move." "What the hell is this?" John yelled, reaching up as though attempting to brush the dots away. Suddenly, there was the staccato sound of something being fired, like an air rifle. 15 darts stuck out of John's body. He tried to reach up but collapsed to the floor, eyes rolling up into his head. "I don't think you're going to be killing anyone today, Anderson," Bob said calmly as he grabbed his phone. He pressed an icon on the phone and heard a man's voice. "Operator 715,463, the man's voice said. "Clean up on aisle 15, Bob said. "Clean up on aisle 15. "Copy that," the man said. Bob pressed another icon, and the systems that had shot John full of tranquilizer darts rotated and retracted back into the ceiling. When the doors closed, no one could tell that anything was there. Bob smiled, pleased that the new security system worked as advertised. A few minutes later, a white unmarked van pulled into the driveway. Men in Tyvek suits entered the house, dragging John's limp body out. One of them took John's keys and drove away in the sports car. Bob closed the door and resumed his activities. A few days later, after buying a caramel mocha at a local coffee shop, Bob was stopped by a large man in a dark suit and sunglasses. "Alpha One wishes to speak with you, Mr. Brown," the man growled. "No." "All right," Bob said, somewhat put off by the man's attitude. He followed the man to a long black limousine parked on the side of the street and got inside after the man opened a back door. "Brown, glad to see you're out and about," Alpha One said after the door was closed. "Oh yes, sir, I have a lot to do," Bob said. Alpha One smiled and put a friendly hand on Bob's shoulder. "Please, Bob, when it's just us, you can call me William," the one-eyed man said. "I wanted to give you an update on Mr. Anderson. He's singing like a canary." "Thank you, Alpha or William. So, he's telling you everything you need?" Bob asked. "Oh yes, he did that right off the bat," William said. "But he's literally singing like a canary right now. Seems the combination of those tranquilizer darts in your new security system and the serum we used to extract the information we needed turned his brains into applesauce. Right now, he's on the swing in a metal cage chirping like a bird." "Oh," Bob said. William pulled an envelope out of his jacket pocket and handed it to Bob. "We did get him to settle with you out of court before he became too incompetent to sign his own name," William said. "He was so grateful to be alive that he settled for far more than you wanted." "Well, that's good to hear," Bob said. "By the way, I want you to know that I'm really impressed with that new system of yours," William said. "Now that we've got what we need from Anderson, I'm glad you didn't use the 50 caliber chain guns I suggested." "Me too," Bob said. "I just had that carpet scrubbed." William chuckled at that. "Have you heard anything about Olivia?" Bob asked. "Yes, she's back to work, although Mr. Jackson is keeping her on a very short leash. Did you ever mention to her who it is you really work for?" William asked. "No, William, I never did," Bob said. William nodded his head. He already knew that from his monitoring devices, but wanted to hear it from Bob personally. "Good," William said. "Well, when your divorce is final, I'd like you to come by headquarters. I'd like to introduce you to your new partner." "Partner?" Bob asked. "I've never needed a partner before." "Well, there's a first time for everything, isn't there, Bob?" Yes, sir. I suppose so, Bob said. That's the spirit, Bob, William said. I look forward to seeing you then. Me too, William, Bob said. The door opened, signaling the end of the meeting. Bob exited the limousine and watched as the large man squeezed himself into the driver's seat. As the long vehicle pulled into traffic, Bob wondered what William had in store for him. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, please like it and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.